So with all this going on, nobody left a chainsaw laying around?
Oh, so awesome Twitch dude asks, would chainsaws also need new zombie animation? So speaking of features, adding features to the game that are more complicated than they sound. When somebody says, oh, why don't you add chainsaws to the game? We add new weapons to the game all the time. That doesn't seem like a huge ask, right? Except the way you would wield a chainsaw is entirely different from the way you would wield any other weapon. So it would require new animations for the player, new animations for the zombies, new particle effects coming out of the zombies as you're chopping them. Right now we have certain patterns of damage to zombies that are based on either hitting them really hard, usually with a blade, or shooting them, but we don't have the exact pattern of damage that you would get from slicing a zombie with a chainsaw. So there's tons of things we would have to add, and ultimately our game is not realistic. Obviously, there's a lot of it that's not realistic, but it does sort of have an air of authenticity. This is not Dead Rising, where you can just make whatever weird thing you want into a weapon, and it just works. And and it's like you're like video games, whatever. Our game isn't like that. We are trying to sort of simulate something authentic, and while absolute realism is just not in the cards anyway, and the game can't be fully realistic, there is something about the attitude of the game that sort of comes across as authentic. Like, you feel like the story you tell about your characters is a story that feels like, if this scenario were actually real, it's the kind of story you could tell about real people. So even if it wasn't expensive to add chainsaws to the game, even if it wasn't just like kind of prohibitively, like, it's a lot of animation to put into one item, in the game. Like, we haven't devoted, I feel lucky that we got lever action rifles into the game, because that took, unique animations and behaviors and effects and stuff like that. Maybe not effects, but it took the other stuff. Anyway, that was an unusually large investment for only about a dozen weapons. To put that amount into one single weapon that most players are not even going to grab feels like a lot. Oh, whoops! Zombies showed up. But then also on top of the resource question, just chainsaws are out of character for the game. The game is not really about sort of that. Like, a lot of players actually kind of protested when we released the Independence Pack because it's kind of weird, over the top, silly weapons and silly vehicles, and some people complained about the Revolutionary War zombies, because what they came to our game for was an authentic experience, and instead they got a silly experience with those particular parts of the game. Most of the game was still on brand and on theme for them, but some of it wasn't. And so a chainsaw feels like it's kind of in that zone of like, oh, it's a fantastical weapon that, wouldn't it be fun to kill zombies with a chainsaw? But it's not something you could actually use in real life to any real effect. And so people would, it would feel like, you're just trying to be silly. You're trying to make like a Sam Raimi movie instead of, simulating the zombie apocalypse. Adam Beltran says, we need a chainsaw. And then he says, he's just kidding, it'd be way too loud. It would also require new animations. You can't really fight with a chainsaw the way you fight with other things. And so we need an entire new combat style just for the chainsaw, which doesn't feel like it's worth it, given all the other downsides of using a chainsaw. I mean, in real life, you would not actually fight zombies with a chainsaw. Not if they were up. Like if you had very hard to kill zombies and you needed to, like, subdue them and then, cut through their skull or something, I could imagine a chainsaw being important. But in this kind of world where the zombies' heads are made out of paper mache and you can pierce them with pretty much anything, that just doesn't make any sense.
Thanks for watching. For mods, weapons, heroes, and more, check out the link in the description down below. I'll see you in the next one.